So what markets is Bitcoin disrupt? It's disrupting store of value assets, value itself. That's where it's competing. So the bond market, the real estate market, equities, right? Stocks, cash, offshore bank accounts, right? Those types of assets. We think it's realistic to capture 5% of those store of value assets. That would push the price of Bitcoin up to 45 trillion. Divided by the 21 million Bitcoin that there are, brings it to about a $2 or $3 million per Bitcoin price. So we're already seeing that 5% number floating. We're already seeing people move to it. And I think 5% is very realistic, maybe within the next decade for sure. And that puts it at a price of $2 to $3 million.
In just a few years, Bitcoin could skyrocket to $3 million per coin by capturing 5% of the world's store of value asset. This bold prediction comes from seasoned entrepreneur and investor Mark Moss. With a successful career as a venture capitalist, author, and podcast host, Moss has spent years analyzing markets and disruptive technologies. Recognizing Bitcoin's potential to revolutionize traditional systems and reshape global finance, Moss explains in a recent interview how Bitcoin is challenging assets like bonds, real estate, and stock. He forecasts that Bitcoin could secure 5% of these markets, driving its value to between $2 and $3 million per coin within the next decade as more investors embrace it. Stay tuned until the end of the video as Mark Moss shares his bullish outlook for Bitcoin and reveals why this shift could redefine the future of investing.
Hi guys, hope to see you guys at Dubai Token 2049. We have exclusive 10% off the limited super early bird tickets. Click the link below. This pass will grant you access to speaking sessions, networking app, exhibition hall, daily networking drinks, and also included breakfast, lunch, and coffee breaks, all included the package. I love to see everyone there. Peace out.
Maybe the easiest way to understand this is I've been a venture capital investor for over a decade. And so the way that we think about this from a venture capital investor, because as a VC investor, you're trying to invest in a brand new technology that's not really there today, right? You're trying to catch it very early. What markets am I disrupting? What's the total valuation of those markets? And what percentage do I think is realistic to capture from those markets? So Bitcoin, we could look at sort of the same way. So what markets is Bitcoin disrupting? Well, Bitcoin is not disrupting tech or payment networks. It's not disrupting Visa or PayPal. It's disrupting store of value assets, value itself. That's where it's competing. So then we'd go, okay, well, what's the addressable market, the TAM, total addressable market, for financial assets or store of value assets? And so store of value assets would be assets that you buy just to store your wealth. So the bond market, the real estate market, equities, right? Stocks, cash, offshore bank accounts, right? Those types of assets. Now, some of them are what we would consider utility. So I own a house that I live in, but then I also own real estate that I invest into. So then we have utility assets, and then some stocks are utility, but then a lot of it is just store value. So if we add that up, we have about $900 trillion. So then the question is, well, what percentage do we think is realistic to capture from those markets, and over what period of time? That's how we'd come up with a future valuation. So what we can see is that Bitcoin, I don't know what it is today, about $1.5 trillion. Gold's at about, I don't know, $14 trillion. So it's about a 10x just from there. So how much do we think we can capture from gold? A lot of people say we could capture the whole gold market or surpass it. How much from real estate? How much from bonds, et cetera? And so if we'd say, well, we think it's realistic to capture 5% of those store value assets, that would push the price of Bitcoin up to 45 trillion. Divided by the 21 million Bitcoin that there are, brings it to about a $2 or $3 million per Bitcoin price. Now, Mark, that math checks out, Mark, but do we think it's realistic to capture 5%, and over what period of time? Well, let's just take a look. So going back to my example of Uber was able to capture 5% of the taxi market in less than a decade. Airbnb was able to capture 5% of the hotel industry in less than a decade. We saw just last week a pension fund in Europe, I think it was called Cambridge, allocated now 3% of their fund to Bitcoin. Yeah. So 5% allocation doesn't seem that far off. It's realistic. It's happened many times in the past. It's happened with Uber and Airbnb. We're already seeing funds doing this. Paul Tudor Jones, billionaire, he's saying 5%. So we're already seeing that 5% number floating. We're already seeing people move to it, and I think 5% is very realistic. Maybe within the next decade for sure, and that puts it at a price of $2 to $3 million per Bitcoin.
Many experts now believe Bitcoin is on the path to global adoption. Donald Trump's election victory, coupled with his crypto-friendly stance, has sparked speculation that digital asset adoption could accelerate across North America and Latin America. In regions like Argentina and Venezuela, where inflation and currency instability run high, Bitcoin and stablecoins already serve as essential tools for shielding against inflation and facilitating remittances. Bitcoin trading has surged in these countries, and experts anticipate that Trump's proposed policies, such as establishing a national Bitcoin reserve and reducing regulatory barriers, could further ignite the region's booming crypto activity. Currently, Latin America processes over $85 billion in crypto transactions annually. With Trump's victory potentially paving the way for clearer U.S. regulations, market sentiment is bullish, and institutional interest in Latin American crypto markets is growing. Now, let's return to Mark Moss as he delves into Bitcoin's potential to drive massive global transformation.
Of a massive change globally, in my opinion, and based off of historical cycles, it looks like the world and human nature always takes things too far and then overcorrects too far and then goes too far. And so we went way too far towards this centralization, the dollar, the U.S. world-led order, the dollar homogeny, the UN, the WEF, all of these things. And I think the world is sick of that and it's pushing back against that. And so we can see this globally with China and Russia and the BRICS breaking out, but we can see it in the United States as well. What this election was in the United States wasn't about Trump or Kamala. It was really we the people versus the deep state establishment. And most Americans knew that. It wasn't a personality contest or a beauty contest. It was about the people, independent, decentralized, private citizens against a global order. I believe that Bitcoin solved one of the oldest problems of humanity. And if you want to make money in the world, you have to solve problems. And the bigger problems you solve for the more people, the more money you make. You figure out personal computers and bring them to all the people in the world, like Bill Gates, you become one of the richest people in the world. And so one of the oldest problems in humanity is, how do I store my property in a way that it can't be stolen? So the original cavemen, like, you're going to come kill me and take my chickens. So then we band together, and then it's this village against this village, and it's this kingdom against this kingdom, and now it's this government against this government. And Bitcoin answered that. And it allows me to now hold my property in a way that cannot be diluted or seized or censored. And so I believe everybody should take advantage of that. That's a pretty big deal, and we should definitely do that. So one, I highly recommend it, but I do understand that there's differences for different people for different situations. The other thing I would say is that Bob Burnett from Barefoot Mining, he's one of my partners in a mining operation that we're in. He's brought to our attention publicly that Satoshi actually created two digital scarcities at once. So the first digital scarcity was only 21 million. The second digital scarcity is the block size. So we can only get so many transactions per block. And there's only a block every 10 minutes. And I forget the exact math, so fact check me on this, but I think it's about 400,000 transactions a day. So how does that work when 8 billion people are using it? The answer is it doesn't. And now using AI and combining UTXO inputs and outputs, maybe we double, triple, quadruple that number. Maybe we get to 1 million or whatever, but it's still not going to handle everybody. So the reality is, if we think down into the future, the majority of people probably won't self-custody their Bitcoin or transact on the main chain. It'll just be, unfortunately, physically impossible to do that. So I think you have to understand all those things, but to sort of put a pin back into this, yes, it solved the oldest problem in the world. I can custody on my own. I should certainly do that if I'm able to, if I feel competent enough to do that without putting myself at risk. I think about generational wealth, and Bitcoin really kind of makes you think even more about that, because you have this generational asset, an asset that could sit there and save its value for 1,000 years, right? And then I have kids, and my kids are getting older, so I'm starting to think about that. I'm getting older, so I'm thinking about that. The entire financial system and education system is built on this philosophy of dying with zero. There's a best-selling book titled Die with Zero. And so basically the goal is to get a good job, save for retirement. So that means I'm going to save a bunch of money to that. Then I can stop working and I can live off the savings. And hopefully my savings doesn't run out before I die, which I think is a horrible idea. Like, why wouldn't I push the value into the future instead of stealing value from the future with debt? And so when I think about that, the argument to that is, why would I want to give my kids any money? It's going to make them lazy. It's going to make them entitled. It's going to ruin my kids. And I agree. Like, you give things to people, they do become lazy and entitled. But again, there's nuance. And so, yes, that could happen, but I could also teach my kids properly and train them other ways so that doesn't happen, for example. But basically, the idea of the family constitution is by setting up a system where I can pass my wealth on down to future generations, maybe my kids, but could be my great, great, great grandkids. But the constitution sets a set of rules or laws around the way that money works. So, for example, the Constitution of the United States. It restricts what the government can do with that. So my Constitution, for example, for my family, is a set of these. So it's one, what are things I believe? What are things I believe about the world? So I believe that we should provide value to the world. I believe that we should be building our skills and we should be trying to solve problems for others. I believe we should be giving to the world more than we're taking. I believe we should be helping others with our money. I believe that trusting mainstream advice is almost never wrong. I believe that we should take personal responsibility. We should learn to manage our time. Like, these are things I believe. And so I write all of that into my Constitution. And then I want to pass those ideals down to my future generations, but I also want to put a set of rules. So then, for example, my kids, grandkids, etc., future generations, they're not able to just like take the money and do nothing. They can't just sit on the couch and do nothing and get money. But for example, if they want to start a business, the trust could evaluate their business idea. And if it seems like they've thought through it pretty well, then we'll give you the money for the business. You want money to buy a house? If you're able to qualify for the house, you make enough money, you can qualify, then we can give you the money to help you with the house. So then the trust could be used as a way to help them without giving them a handout that holds them back or harms them, right? And so that's what I want. I want to give my kids that leg up. I want to let my kids build on top of what I've already built. So I think about my life as like a block of time. My life and the things that I've accomplished and built is the proof of work of my life. And my life, hopefully 100 years, is one block. And I want my kids to add the next block and each generation to keep adding that block, but only in a way that they can add value to those blocks and not take back. So that's what the Constitution is. It's a well thought out plan that pushes your thoughts, your ideologies, your truth forward, and then puts strict requirements on what people can and cannot do with the money or had to have access to the money. So then it somewhat preserves it moving forward. It can pay for education. It can pay for courses. And
Mark Moss believes we are on the verge of a monumental global shift, driven by the transformative power of Bitcoin and the changes unfolding in the United States. The rise of Bitcoin, combined with greater freedom of speech, could pave the way for a new era of economic growth and global influence. As we look ahead, Moss emphasizes that while the U.S. may once again lead as a global influencer, the true catalyst for change lies in education, freedom of expression, and embracing innovative technologies like Bitcoin. Offering solutions to some of humanity's oldest challenges, Bitcoin signals that the revolution is only just beginning. Moss remains optimistic, envisioning a brighter future where Bitcoin has the potential to reshape the world for the better. For more Daily Dose Crypto news, check out these 2 awesome videos on your screen. Click now and we will see you on the next video.